After almost 30 years, the Mission Impossible franchise is coming to an end, and this is a bittersweet moment for all of us fans, especially those of us who grew up with these movies. But Ethan Hunt has to retire at some point, so here we go.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Hey everyone, I'm Mariana, this is Impression Blend, and today we are talking about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, formerly known as Dead Reckoning Part 2, but they changed the name after Part 1 underperformed, unfortunately. I don't think there's a need for a real synopsis here because we all know what's going on. Ethan Hunt and the IMF team are once again doing their best to save the day. This time, the stakes are as high as it gets. They're literally trying to save the world from an evil AI known as the Entity, and from ourselves trying to nuke each other into oblivion. So, you know, basically a regular Tuesday for Ethan Hunt. Let me just say this. The Final Reckoning is far from the best Mission Impossible movie, and I don't think you can argue that there's anything in there that it does better than other movies in the franchise. But it is still a Mission Impossible film, and I still found it entertaining, even though I am a bit sad that the franchise did not end on a high note. This movie starts, and we get the "we live and die in the shadows" voiceover. We get Ethan listening to the message from the president. We get a montage from the rest of the franchise. It's all very dramatic and very much has that feel of everything has led to this. And it works. It worked on me, okay? I have nostalgia for these movies. This is meaningful to me. Emotions were stirring. Then we go to some exposition, some setup, some more exposition, some more setup. We're splicing in more and more flashbacks. We're tying characters into older characters and previous missions. And pretty soon you understand that this almost 3-hour runtime is not going to be a thrill ride. It's going to be an overstuffed, convoluted journey that relies on you caring about these characters because of your history with the franchise. And that's disappointing. I cannot overstate the amount of setup, callbacks, references, and tie-ins in this movie, even though somehow, with all of that, they didn't find a place for Vanessa Kirby's White Widow to return, regardless of what they set up for her in the previous movie. Yes, I am salty about that. I was really hoping to see her. You're going to see all of the Tom Cruise running you ever wanted to see, all of the anything that can go wrong will go wrong at every step. You're going to see Tom Cruise underwater and hanging off a plane. And all of this just makes you feel tired. I was sitting there checking my watch 2 hours in, wondering how there was still almost an hour left. And again, I didn't hate this movie. I was enjoying it for what it was, but at the same time, I didn't think half of it was necessary. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but even as someone who actually loved Dead Reckoning, after seeing the entire story arc, they made this way too complicated. These last two films should have been one epic 3-hour movie that sacrificed some subplots because, let's be real, a good amount of them were either nostalgia bait or random obstacles that didn't really have an impact. It should have been insane, dramatic, action-packed, larger than life, everything this franchise is known for. We didn't need a bunch of new characters. Let us properly say goodbye to the characters we already love. Instead, the final mission got split into 2 movies, neither of which feels complete the way the rest of the movies in the franchise do. And the Final Reckoning specifically felt like everyone was tired and ready to be done carrying this story. This was the first time I barely felt that Mission Impossible spark and energy we all know and love aside from a few scenes. This is also the least fun I had with this franchise, even though I still had fun, but compared to the rest, this movie is just bogged down by constant exposition, dialogue, and complications. What's also weird is that with all that runtime and setup and dialogue, the character work is barely there. The core team we know and love have a few nice scenes with each other, but nothing that really stands out as a great character moment or makes you think, damn, that's what it's all about. I'm going to miss these guys. And the newer characters, there's not much to say at all. They're just there to fulfill a specific function because the plot needs them to. And you might say, Mariana, this is an action franchise. Are you really expecting character work here? And to that I say, yes. But also, it's not like there's enough action here to fill the 3-hour runtime. What's done with the characters here is night and day compared to how much personality and amazing character moments we've gotten throughout the franchise. This is what I'm talking about when I say this movie relies on your previous attachments to have any kind of real impact as a story. And yes, it works to an extent because as fans, we do have those previous attachments. But wouldn't it be awesome if The Final Reckoning just was a great movie? Now, I do want to talk about the 2 big stunt sequences since they were revealed in the marketing, but in case you were avoiding all of that, I do have timestamps so you can skip further into the video. The first big stunt sequence is the one underwater where Ethan goes looking for the submarine, and that was easily my favorite part of the movie. This one actually had me stressed and wondering how it was going to unfold. I also think this is where the movie was at its most original and creative, which is something that was severely lacking in The Final Reckoning. It didn't have nearly as much to offer as the previous films, and for me, the underwater scene is where it peaked. The location itself is stressful. Watching Ethan go deeper and deeper into the submarine as everything is threatening to fall apart is stressful. The sound design is great. I saw this in Dolby, so I definitely felt that scene. The lighting was just right. I was into it. As for the biplane sequence, even though I didn't love it as much and I was a little bit confused why the marketing focused on the grand finale of this entire film, which makes it the grand finale of the entire franchise, but it was still very impressive. Tom Cruise is insane for doing that, and watching the behind the scenes of it just shows how insane he actually is. It also incorporated some humor, so that made things more fun, but I just couldn't shake the feeling that we've seen similar things before. Like, we've seen Tom Cruise hanging off a plane in this franchise. We've seen up in the air action, and it's also pretty reminiscent to the helicopter scene from Fallout. So while none of these things make it a bad or less impressive sequence, I was surprised that this is what they chose to do for the grand finale of the entire series instead of going with something more original like they normally would. Now, for this part, I want to get into some major spoilers for a minute, so if you haven't seen the movie, please skip to the next portion of the video because I'm about to spoil something big. I need to talk to those of you who have seen the movie because I need to talk about something that kind of bothered me. Final spoiler alert, okay? Right. So, is it just me, or did it seem like Ethan was supposed to die and then the filmmakers changed their mind? Now, I am not advocating for killing off the main character at the end of the franchise. I was really annoyed when a different spy action franchise did that a few years ago. You know the one, and I was kind of dreading it here. But it really seemed like that's where they were heading with that whole "we're not going to retire" sentiment that's been a through line in the franchise and got brought up in this movie again. It was also obviously the final mission, and Ethan and his team do come off too tired to be as reckless as they have been this whole time. So I'm sitting there thinking, yep, this is it. I'm I'm definitely going to cry. And then his parachute burns down. He is free falling towards the ground as he is desperately trying to connect the poison pill to the hard drive. This felt like goodbye. This felt like there was a version of this movie where Ethan Hunt dies saving the world, and as sad as that is, it would have been very fitting. But then, surprise, he had a reserve parachute, and I get that reserve parachutes are a pretty common thing, but this felt like a cop-out, and I have very mixed feelings about this. I appreciate this franchise being optimistic and having that old school hero in it when most movies out there are too busy deconstructing things to have fun. But something about this did not feel right. I either needed them to follow through with what they seemingly set up or to execute this survival against all odds better than, just kidding, he's alive. I need your opinions below because the ending just felt weird to me, especially when they followed it up with all of them meeting up for the last time and then walking away in different directions. I don't love how they wrap this up, so let me know what you think about this ending. So in the end, where am I with this movie? I liked it, but I'm also disappointed that I didn't love it. I'm not sold on the necessity of this runtime, and I'm not even sold on the need to split this final story arc into 2 movies. But I also have so much nostalgia, as I'm sure many of you do as well, that I am a little bit more forgiving here, despite all of the criticisms I have. When the final reckoning is at its best, it does shine. The big stunt sequences and a few smaller moments of action are a lot of fun. There are a few memorable lines throughout the movie, and the cast is a joy to watch, even if some of those roles are very small. A special shout out to Mr. Milkshake himself, Tramell Tillman. But for each of these great moments, there are copious amounts of exposition that make the movie feel bloated, lacking levity and balance. It's a movie that takes itself very seriously, too seriously if you ask me, and it's occasionally threatening to drown under the weight of its own stakes. Yes, we get it. Every choice, every mission has all led to this. The enemy is larger than life. The governments are one step away from nuclear annihilation. Everything is a race against time. And honestly, it probably deserves a 6 out of 10, but I'm a fangirl and I can't help it, so I'm going with 7 out of 10 because I will never not love this franchise, regardless of its flaws. My apologies to Bond, but Ethan Hunt is my favorite spy action hero. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is not a great movie, but every time a deeply unnecessary flashback showed up on screen, I just couldn't help smiling and feeling nostalgic, even if maybe it also made me wish I was watching one of those movies instead.